I would say the most interesting element of Afghanistan in terms of consistency is Afghanistan's origins. Afghanistan was created in the 19th century as a buffer zone between the Russian and British empires. The Russians were moving south towards India, the British were moving north towards Russia, and the basic reason that they created Afghanistan was, I guess, two repercussions. The first reason was that nobody wanted to go into Afghanistan. The British were afraid, and well, the British would never say they were afraid of anything, but the British were concerned about Afghanistan, mostly the rugged terrain and the inability to quell any type of uprising. The Russians, who had always wanted a warm sea weather port, were also concerned. So basically, Afghanistan was a mistake of history. It is not and has never been a coherent so-called nation, as we would think in the case of Canada. So two problems originate. One is its terrain. The second part of Afghanistan is, in some ways, it isn't a real nation. It is a conglomeration of different tribes. And to this very day, some people would say the Taliban is less a religious movement than a tribal movement. It is not so much Islam, but the Pashtun tribes. So this is how the origination of Afghanistan. Now, of course, in our conscious memory, Afghanistan really made headlines in 1979 when the Soviet Union decided the day after Christmas that they would invade Afghanistan. Now, of course, we all know how that did not work out for the Soviet Union. In response to the invasion of Afghanistan by the Soviet Union, the United States began to fund the Mujahideen in Pakistan. And out of that funding of the Mujahideen, you had several unintended repercussions. One was, of course, the Pakistan madrasas, or religious schools. And of course, the very word Taliban is Arabic. It means students. Talib means student. Arabic, you add an AN, my 1 year of Arabic, to pluralize it. So Taliban actually means literally students. And out of those Pakistan madrasas came the Taliban movement. Now the second issue is 1988, the war with the Soviet Union is over, and the Mujahideen win. And the Mujahideen are very excited because they feel that they have brought the world, one of the world's two superpowers, to defeat. The Americans, of course, had a different idea about that. So fresh off of victory, the Mujahideen are sent throughout the world with this newfound sense of victory. And many of them return home to cause various amounts of trouble. Now, of course, we picked this story up in the 1990s. We must remember two different branches. The Taliban and Al-Qaeda are usually seen as synonymous, but they are two completely different things. The Taliban is in many ways an indigenous movement that is from both Afghanistan and Pakistan, because it is part of the Pashtun tribes that find most of themselves in southern Afghanistan and parts of Pakistan. Al-Qaeda is a entity. It is a concept. In fact, the term Al-Qaeda means the base. Now, of course, we know in the 1990s, Al-Qaeda, the concept, and Taliban, the movement, come together. And of course, it is because of that and the fact that the Taliban gave Al-Qaeda a sanctuary that Al-Qaeda was able to attack the United States on September 11th and kill the most significant terrorist attack in history, killing over 2,800 people, and brought us to war in Afghanistan. Now, of course, we know what has happened over the last 8 years. For whatever particular reason, the Western community decided that the Afghan war was over. They began to focus on Iraq, and clearly many people think that was a large mistake, that the war in Afghanistan was not over, and now we have returned to Afghanistan. Now, of course, the Canadians and others never left. We find ourselves in the present, and I guess the major point is Al-Qaeda as an idea, can an idea be defeated? Hard to say one way or another. The Taliban. People talk about the Taliban as being an Afghanistan movement or a Pakistan movement. The truth is they're both. The Taliban come from tribes on the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan Most people in those areas do not recognize the distinction. They don't even recognize the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. To them, that is an artificial border created by the British in the late 19th century. So when you say the Taliban goes from Pakistan to Afghanistan, they don't recognize any distinction between the two. Now, could there be a solution to this? On the one hand, I'll play devil's advocate. On the one hand, people would say Afghanistan has never been able to be conquered. It couldn't be conquered in the 19th century. The Soviet Union couldn't conquer it. We thought we had conquered it in 2001. We had not conquered it. It cannot be conquered. The best is to try to pacify this movement. The Taliban is not just some sort of foreign or alien source. It is among the people themselves, depending on the support. On the other side, I think a more accurate strategy might be to bring the Taliban into the community of nations. And of course, this might sound crazy. You can't negotiate with terrorists, but as we already know, the British and Americans have been talking to members of the Taliban. What they're trying to do is, I guess, to focus on the moderate elements of the Taliban to negotiate. But I think our strategy right now is probably the best. Most people, and I'm sure most people here in Canada, Britain, and the United States all agree that the Taliban probably cannot be defeated militarily. And it seems that Canada's taken the strategy, hearts and minds, schools, many people mentioned today, education, educating people. And I think most people would agree that is the best strategy. Educating people and also giving them a better life, giving them hope, which is something that Afghanistan has not had for a very, very long time. So I know that the strategy is about one village at a time, and trying to instill these types of making people's lives better, and of course the hearts and minds argument, making people want to be part of the community of nations. So, I mean, again, the physical elements cannot be defeated, but it's the ideas, and I'm probably not saying anything new. Most people would say we're battling hearts and minds. Give the people hope and give the people something to aspire to. Democracy, liberty, and freedom are empty terms. We've got to fill them up and show them that they are. Our way of life is not just expressed to be better, but our way of life is a better life because it gives people hope, and it gives people allowing to live, grow up, and see their families succeed better than the previous generations.